there's a Sasquatch standing there looking at me. And it just stepped right from myth right into reality.
Spotted Bigfoot in Cleveland County, and this isn't the first time.
And now we're at Reamer's annual Bigfoot Festival, listening to some incredible stories from local witnesses.
Just now, a hunter took a very clear picture of a huge Sasquatch, big and clear as day. He was deep in the woods of West Virginia, expecting an ordinary day of hunting, wearing his lucky hat. But instead of seeing deer, he came face to face with a giant creature chopping wood near power lines. The day turned spooky as he watched this giant Bigfoot, bringing scary stories to life. What does this mean for all those tales we've heard? Tune in to see the amazing photo that could change everything we thought about Bigfoot. The day a hunter photographed Bigfoot. A hunter recently captured a remarkable close-up photo of what appears to be a Sasquatch, a creature that many believe is only a myth. The photo, incredibly clear and detailed, is something truly unforgettable. The hunter, who never expected to witness such an event, recounted his strange experience during a routine hunting trip that took a bizarre turn. As the hunter stepped closer, the Sasquatch turned, its human-like eyes meeting his. Then it vanished into the woods, leaving only puzzling footprints behind. Last November, the hunter ventured into the remote hills of West Virginia, near the Virginia border. This area, with its rugged terrain and isolated paths, was a familiar place for him. The roads were rough, twisting through steep hills that required a sturdy four-wheel drive just to navigate.
It's because Renee suggested something the other day that the Bigfoot stuff is here and that makes people hoax.
Despite the challenges, the hunter loved the remoteness, as it offered the perfect environment for a peaceful hunt. The quietness of the forest struck him as soon as he stepped out of the vehicle. There were no other hunters around, no distant sounds of life, just the deep stillness that often comes with the wilderness. It felt like the ideal setting for a day spent in nature, far away from the distractions of everyday life. The day, however, did not unfold as planned. The hunter missed a shot at a large deer early on, an event that left him frustrated and doubting the power of his lucky hat. As the hours passed, the mountain seemed to empty of all life. He saw no more deer, and the eerie quietness of the forest only deepened, making the day feel strangely off-kilter. He was about 4 miles from his truck, and with the sun already beginning its descent, the long shadows reminded him that daylight was running short. From his vantage point, he could see the valley below and even the McDonald's he had visited that morning. His thoughts turned to food, and the idea of a hot meal started to appeal to him more and more as his stomach growled. A faint thumping sound echoed through the trees, soft but distinct. At first, the hunter couldn't place it. The noise wasn't coming from any familiar direction, and it wasn't a sound he associated with the forest. As he moved closer, the sounds became more rhythmic, almost like construction work. That seemed odd since the mountain was remote, with no signs of human activity for miles, aside from the aging electrical poles. Curiosity got the better of him, and he continued walking toward the source of the noise. It seemed to be coming from near the power lines, but when he looked, he saw no workers, no machinery, nothing to explain the sound. A strange unease crept in, but he pressed on, moving closer to where the sounds were now unmistakably clear.
No Bigfooters have ever tried to go in there because it's just total swampy zone.
The hunter approached cautiously, his instincts alert. The sound wasn't coming from the power lines at all. It was closer to the edge of the forest, about 30 feet away, and it wasn't the noise of machinery or tools, it was the sound of someone chopping wood. But why would anyone be cutting down a tree this close to electrical lines, and why with an axe? These questions swirled in his mind as he prepared himself to confront whoever was there. As he neared the source of the noise, his mind rehearsed what he would say. A firm but reasonable approach seemed best, something like, "What do you think you're doing?" But as he got within sight of the figure, any plans of confrontation vanished. The person, if it could be called that, was much larger than he expected. Taller than any person he'd ever seen, the figure stood with its back to him, towering and broad, moving methodically as it chopped at the base of a tree. As the figure came into view, something about it felt wrong. It stood there, chopping repeatedly at a tree, its back turned. From a distance, the figure seemed almost human, but not quite. Hidden in the tall grass, he crouched down, keeping his eyes locked on it. Whoever or whatever this was, it hadn't noticed him yet. The rhythmic chopping continued. the sound of the axe biting into the wood echoing through the trees. A strange idea crept into his mind, whispering a thought he didn't want to acknowledge. It's a Sasquatch. It's Bigfoot. He had always laughed at such stories. They belonged in myths, not real life. Yet no matter how much he tried to push the thought away, something didn't add up. The shape, the way it moved, it didn't fit any normal explanation. Slowly, he realized what he was seeing was beyond belief. The truth he didn't want to admit pressed down on him. He was looking at a Sasquatch dot. The hunter's surprising find pushes him to make a tough choice.
I could be down below actually playing an instrument of some sort to try to bring the Bigfoots in.
The temptation and turmoil of capturing Bigfoot. Less than 100 feet away stood a creature straight out of folklore, and all he had was a rifle in his hand and a head full of wild ideas. As his mind raced, another thought, reckless and foolish, crossed his mind. What if he brought this back instead of a deer? Fame would be instant, his name etched in history as the one who discovered Sasquatch. People would come from everywhere just to see it. Fortune and recognition flashed before his eyes, clearing debts, buying a big house, even donating some of his newfound wealth. But beneath that wild ambition, a voice inside reminded him this was still a living being. The more he thought about it, the more unsettling it became. Hunting deer or squirrels felt natural, creatures placed on the earth to be hunted and eaten. But Sasquatch, the thought of eating it made him shudder. The idea was absurd, and yet the temptation of capturing it lingered in his mind. He raised the rifle, curious to see the creature through the scope, and in an instant, regret surged through him. As soon as the rifle was aimed, the creature stopped. It turned slowly, meeting his gaze. To his complete astonishment, the creature communicated clearly and calmly, asking not to be shot. He froze, his heart pounding. His mind raced to understand what just happened. He quickly lowered the rifle, overwhelmed by confusion and guilt. This wasn't a regular animal. Animals don't speak. Slowly, he moved toward it, trying to make sense of the situation. The creature remained motionless, observing him intently as it alternated its gaze between him and the rifle. Overwhelmed, he tried to justify his actions by thinking it was a bear, even though he was aware that bears didn't inhabit this area. His explanation was weak, but it was the best he could come up with under the circumstances. The creature quickly clarified that it was just wearing a costume, as if that made everything clear. Alone in the wilderness during hunting season seemed risky. He was confused, but tried to understand, wondering aloud if it was akin to movie costumes. The creature, identifying itself as an actor, gave no more details. The idea of an actor out here was baffling. There were no cameras, no crew. After a moment of silence, the creature eventually nodded in confirmation. He wondered if the creature had a YouTube channel, hoping that might explain its unusual attire and behavior. However, the creature seemed confused before eventually nodding. Suddenly, it started speaking rapidly in Chinese, a language he didn't understand. The situation felt increasingly surreal. To ease the tension and acknowledge the creature's nervous glances at his gun, he decided to search for answers later. Feeling increasingly guilty, he apologized once more, attempting to clarify his actions, but the creature merely stood there, unresponsive. Trying to lighten the mood, he complimented its convincing appearance and wondered aloud if it was just wandering around in a Bigfoot costume and if he was being filmed. However, the creature only reiterated that it was wearing a costume, as though that clarified the entire situation.
When you think of the Bigfoot's natural habitat, you typically think of the Pacific Northwest.
At this point, he became more direct, inquiring about where the costume came from. The creature hesitated and initially claimed it was from McDonald's, then suddenly seemed to regret this response. After a brief pause, it corrected itself, stating it was actually from Walmart. He wasn't convinced. The costume looked far too realistic, better than anything he had ever seen. It reminded him of the famous Patterson-Gimlin Bigfoot footage, only more lifelike. No way Walmart was selling something like that. And this guy, this creature, was huge, at least 3 feet taller than him. He couldn't imagine Walmart carrying a costume for someone that size. Still curious, he asked about its height. The creature avoided answering at first, but then guessed 8 feet, as if the number didn't matter. Maybe it wasn't familiar with their measurements. In the back of his mind, doubts about the costume kept growing, but he still couldn't make sense of it. The whole situation felt impossible. The figure, impossibly tall at 8 feet, made everything feel off-kilter. Such height was rare, almost unnatural, and added to the strangeness of the scene unfolding near the power lines. He was chopping down a tree dangerously close to the cables in a way that made no sense. There was no clear reason for his actions. When asked, he didn't offer an explanation, just a smile followed by unsettling laughter. His words spiraled into a long monologue about protecting nature, suggesting a deep concern for the environment. Yet there was no clear connection between his ideals and his odd behavior. His towering height and odd demeanor made challenging him seem pointless, so compliance seemed the best course, but none of this explained why he was cutting the tree so near the power lines. The situation grew stranger still when he allowed a photo to be taken, though his silence around the request was neither an acceptance nor a refusal. When he showed unexpected interest in the phone, it felt odd but not alarming. The man's unpredictable nature hovered like a cloud, but nothing prepared for what came next. As he asked to see the photo, the air seemed to shift. His mood darkened instantly when he saw the image. An initial flash of anger crossed his face, but it quickly passed, replaced by an unsettling calm. His words mirrored the goodbye said moments before, as if he were mimicking it, adding another layer of discomfort. He reached out to shake hands, and that's when everything changed. As dusk falls, the hunter's strange day leads to even more questions. The dark mystery of the mountain shadows. The handshake became a vice grip, cold and forceful. Without warning, he flipped the smaller figure over with a swift motion, leaving pain radiating from the wrist. As quickly as it had happened, the man stomped on the phone, shattering any evidence of their encounter. There was no time to react before he grabbed the rifle and pointed it clumsily, holding it backward as if unfamiliar with its use. His retreat was just as sudden, backing away before sprinting into the woods, the rifle still in his possession. The day was fading, darkness creeping in, and now, left alone and injured, the sense of vulnerability deepened. The question lingered whether it was possible to walk with the wrist throbbing painfully. Age only added to the concern, and the body, already battered, might harbor other injuries that hadn't yet made themselves known. Moving slowly, every step cautious, the long walk back to the truck began. A return to where the phone had been crushed seemed pointless, but for some reason, gathering a few pieces of it felt necessary. The rest of the walk stretched out in the deepening dusk, 3 miles of fatigue, pain, and fear. Each noise from the surrounding woods amplified the sense of being watched, like the very trees were alive, observing every move. The unease didn't fade. Along the narrow pine-lined path, sounds began to emerge. Something or someone seemed to follow. Every movement was mirrored, rustling in the underbrush when steps were taken, and going silent when they stopped. The presence was too in sync to be anything natural. It felt as though a shadow lingered, tracking each step, unseen but undeniably there. Humming an old familiar tune was the only way to stay calm. Eventually, the sounds lessened, but the tension never fully dissipated.
The Sierra sounds are singularly important in the study of Sasquatch.
The return to the truck brought no relief, and the drive down the mountain road became a battle to stay on course. Several times, the truck veered dangerously close to the edge, exhaustion and adrenaline warring for control. Upon reaching home, explaining what had happened seemed impossible. A simple fall was the story given, enough to justify the broken wrist and the destroyed phone. The truth, if it could even be called that, stayed locked inside, too strange to share. The injuries, though minor beyond the wrist, raised suspicion among the doctors. Their faces mirrored doubt at the mention of a mere fall, but no further details were offered. What had occurred in those woods with the towering stranger and the broken pieces of that day would remain a mystery, tucked away in a mind that had seen too much in the span of a few hours. That evening, a man settled into his recliner, his dog curled up beside him as a game played on the TV. His wife was out with a friend across town, leaving the house quiet except for the low hum of the broadcast. Suddenly, the power went out. The darkness was abrupt, and the man's thoughts instantly drifted back to a strange figure he had seen not long ago near the power lines in the mountains. The weather was calm, no storm in sight, yet an uneasy feeling lingered. He couldn't shake the suspicion that the mysterious figure might somehow be connected to this sudden outage. When his wife returned later that night, she mentioned that the power outage had affected the entire area. Word spread that fallen trees had brought down several power lines. It sounded simple enough, but the timing felt odd. It happened just as hunting season began, a fact that didn't sit well with him. Memories of his own near encounter came flooding back. He had almost shot one of those strange figures in the woods. Was the power outage just a coincidence, or was there something more deliberate at play? The questions nagged at him. In the days that followed, another issue weighed on his mind. His phone had been damaged, and he mentioned it to a coworker named Alan who had a knack for technology. Alan offered to try recovering what he could from the phone, and while the man appreciated the offer, he didn't mention the most important thing he had lost: a photo. Not just any photo, but one that captured the strange creature he had seen in the woods. He decided to wait and see if Alan could recover it before saying anything. When the man visited Alan, they sifted through the phone's recovered photos. Most of them were lighthearted, pictures of trivial moments and silly faces, enough to spark laughter between them. But then they stumbled upon the photo, the image of the creature. The moment Alan saw it, he froze. He asked if it was real, wanting to know where it had come from. Only then did the man share the full story, describing his encounter with the creature in the mountains. To his surprise, Alan had a similar experience from his childhood. The discovery felt significant, almost like the missing piece of a puzzle that had lingered for years. The man began showing the photo to more people. What started as casual curiosity soon revealed something unsettling. Many others had their own stories, strange encounters that they had kept quiet for years. Some even stretched back decades, passed down through family tales and local rumors. It became clear that these creatures, or whatever they were, had been lurking in the woods for a long time. The photo he had captured felt like undeniable proof, a glimpse of something that most people had only whispered about in the past. Do you believe Bigfoot could actually exist, or is this just another elaborate hoax? Let us know your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more mysterious stories.